Hey everybody, it's your host, Mary-Pat Hector, and welcome to Okay But Listen, a raw, unfiltered podcast that pushes young people out of their political echo chambers and supports in amplifying their voices. I'm so excited about today's episode because, listen, we know that young people are in their rebellious era and the political playbook is being burned, but nobody embodies this chaos more than my guest today, CJ Pearson.
What an intro, Mary-Pat Hector. Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
I'm excited about this conversation because oftentimes it feels like people can't have a normal conversation. It's always like a fight. Like, me and you are not enemies just because you are a Trump supporter. Like, we don't agree on a lot.
We don't.
What we do agree on are that young people should be in politics.
I completely agree. And, having grown up in a household raised by Democrats, I didn't have the luxury of ignoring, my parents and my grandparents because they didn't share my same political beliefs.
Yeah.
Ignoring them would have meant that I wasn't eating that night.
Yeah.
And, I was making sure I was getting that meal. And so I think that, I've never grown up in a culture, at least in my home, where I would just, ignore someone just because they have different beliefs than me or hate them because of those different beliefs. And I think the more that we have conversations like this, the more that we can sit across from one another, we actually figure out there's a lot more that actually brings us together. And I think also, too, we see that our intentions are the same. Even though our way of getting there may be different, I think that at the end of the day, a lot of us just truly want America to be a place that we're proud to raise our children in, and one day that they can raise their children in as well.
Absolutely. Especially for me, because I just had a baby.
Yeah, congratulations.
She is, 5 or 6 months now?
Yeah.
And, I want her to thrive.
Yeah.
But let's kick off today's episode. First, I just wanted you to kind of share with people kind of like where you got your start in this political space. I know I started at 13.
Yeah.
You started way before then.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are interested, whether it's on the progressive side or the conservative side. Like, you seem like one in a million.
Yeah. So I got started when I was around 11 years old. It was the 2014 midterm cycle. Really how that came about is that I was a Boy Scout for a little bit. And one of the requirements to move up in rank was that you had to meet with your local congressman. And my congressman at the time was a man named John Barrow. And so he was a blue dog Democrat, definitely, more on the conservative side. But I remember meeting with him and sitting across from him, asking these questions about the Second Amendment, asking him questions about Obamacare and these other issues that, of course, were very hot topics at the time during that election cycle. And I felt as if that this man had no conviction. He had no spine. He was telling me what I wanted to hear, not what he actually believed. And, one thing about me, I don't care if you're Democrat or Republican. If you believe what you believe, say it. Stand on that. Don't capitulate. Don't back down. Say what you mean and do what you say. And he was the antithesis of any of that. And so I left his office, immediately called his Republican challenger, Rick Allen, and I was like, I want to come work for you. And so the next day, they told me to show up to the campaign office. I came up there in a 3-piece suit thinking I was going to be doing, stuff in the office. They're like, no, CJ, you're going out in the field. Yeah. That is figurative, guys. The Republicans did not send me out in the field, but they had me knocking on doors. And the Georgia heat, middle of summer, it was hot as hell. But we were knocking on doors. And for me, it's really where I found my passion in that cycle. Listening to people, going to their homes, hearing their concern about the direction of America, hearing their concern about, issues that, affect whether or not they're able to put food on the table and closing their children's back. It had a real impact on me even at that age. And so following that, I stayed in the fight, continued to be involved, kind of got more involved in the media side of things a few months after that. Rick Allen won that election, but I'm the type of kid that, wanted to stay busy, had to stay busy. And so I founded an organization called Young Georgians in Government. We wanted to basically fight for young people's voices here in the state of Georgia, but we also wanted to lower the age to run for office here in Georgia. Currently, as it stands, you have to be 25 years old to be in the state Senate, 21 to be in the state House. It was pretty crazy to me. I thought, if you can die for your country at 18, overseas, fighting in a war, you should be able to serve your community here at home and deliver, solutions to problems if the people in your district believe that you would be a good representative. And so did that, and then, made a viral YouTube video in February of 2015, going after Obama a little bit. That video went viral. And, since then I've kind of built a platform of almost 2 million people, in my view, giving a platform to a part of our community is young people that oftentimes aren't amplified as much. I think increasingly we're seeing that, young people are not a monolith in this country. Gen Z is not a monolith in this country. And so, definitely try to be a voice or a megaphone for the other side of the aisle in that case.
And I'll say, like, for me, as you know, I also ran for office. I know you ran for office.
Yeah.
And my race was contested due to my age. I was under the age of 20 years old.
Yeah.
I ended up losing my election, like, literally by less than 25 votes.
Yeah.
And after that, I was like, you know what? I'm going to make sure any young person who runs for office, like, they have my support. They have my back. Like, I'm going to just go hard.
Yeah.
And they won't lose by 25 votes.
Yeah.
But that was something that I think kind of prevented me from being able to succeed in my election, was the time going to court fighting the contests.
Yeah, no, I had that same experience. They tried to challenge, my campaign, kicked me off the ballot because they said that I wasn't, a resident of Georgia. I've always been registered to vote in the state of Georgia. I've always, I grew up in the state of Georgia. I went to high school in the state of Georgia. I've been a lifelong resident of that community, but it was just one of the dirty political tricks that unfortunately defines our political, arena today. But, you probably got it, and obviously you did through the election challenge. A lot of attacks based on your age. But I got to tell you, I think more and more young people need to answer the call to serve and to run, because who has more to lose than our generation? If we don't right the ship, the direction of this country, we stand to have the most to lose. And you look at the founding of this country, it was young people who founded this nation. You look at some of the most, important movements throughout the history of this country. It was young people on the front lines, the civil rights movement, and so many more. It was young people who brought, power to, so much of these rooms, and energy and passion that was, without them, would have been missing. And so, I think young people have an indispensable role to play in ensuring that the America that our kids will one day inherit is one that they can be proud of.
Absolutely. So the GOP had a glow up last year.
Yeah.
You're happy about it.
We got a new house.
Me, not so much. But for years, the political analysis was that Gen Z would be the most loyal voting bloc to the progressive side because of the issues, right? Like climate, gun violence, repro.
Yeah.
But in 2024, that wasn't the issue that young people cared about the most to vote. It was the economy. It was inflation. It was the issues that typically, normally, you don't really talk about or hear or aren't at the forefront. But just to give you all the numbers, 64% of young voters between the ages of 18 and 34 prioritize the economy over any other issue in 2024 compared to other political issues like climate and repro and racism in 2020. Yeah. And so I'm interested in kind of hearing a little bit about this GOP glow up. What do you think beyond the economy contributed to the wins of the GOP party?
Yeah, it was a tremendous swing, and one of which we're immensely proud of. This past cycle, I served as the national chairman of the RNC Youth Advisory Council, and so it was my job to literally figure out how we could reach young people where they are and bring our message to them in a way in which would win them over to our side. And then what we saw in this past election was a 20-point swing among voters under 30 to the Republican side, something of which we've never seen before.
Young voters backed Kamala Harris over Donald Trump in 2024, 52% to 46%. Still, like other age groups, they shifted noticeably toward Trump compared to 2020. Young men's support flipped 56% for Trump in 2024, reversing the 56% who backed Biden 4 years earlier. Young women also moved right with Trump's support rising from 33% to 40%. Overall, Trump gained 10 points among young voters since 2020, yet they remained the age group most supportive of the Democratic candidate.
And I think, you're completely right by the numbers. I think, young people obviously prioritize the economy in this election, and rightfully so. Under the leadership of, President Biden and Kamala Harris, the economy wasn't doing well. Inflation was at a record high. Grocery stores were empty at times. And we also saw, gas prices that were out the wazoo. And so I think, when you look at kind of the hierarchy of needs or, priorities for any person, it doesn't matter how old you are. If you're broke, you really don't have time to worry about the weather or climate. If you're broke, you don't really have time to worry about pronouns or any of those things. And when you're broke, you don't really have time to worry about January 6th, something that happened a long time ago. And I think Democrats,
it didn't happen that long ago.
It was pretty long ago, and voters showed that they didn't care.
1990 bloop was long ago. That was the year I was born.
What I will tell you is that, looking at that, you saw consistently during the election, it's like, the Democrat Party, I think, really didn't have a message that met people for their current situations. And they tried to, I think, run on feelings and vibes. And people were like, I'm broke. Like, I can't afford groceries. I can't afford to live. Like, you want to lecture me about, Donald Trump is a threat to democracy? People didn't care about that. The fact that we were having an election was proof that our democracy was alive and well. What was a threat to democracy is the fact that all of a sudden Kamala Harris became the Democrat nominee overnight, and not a single Democrat voter had the opportunity to vote for her. And I think that's the antithesis of democracy in action. And so I think a lot, and also to your point, you said there were indicators that Gen Z would be the most reliable voting bloc for progressives. I think that the big part of that, and this is also kind of on the fault of the woke left, is that a lot of young people who didn't agree with the progressive ideas of a lot of people that comprise Generation Z felt forced into silence. And because of that, they eventually got to the point where I'm not going to say radicalized. I don't think it's radical to believe in, in low taxes and, be pro-business or any of those things. But I think eventually they just slowly but surely became the silent majority, or at least, an increasing plurality of folks. And they have cancel culture to blame for that. When you tell a bunch of people that they are wrong because they don't believe that there are more than two genders, or you believe that they're, a bigot because they don't believe that, pronouns are necessary, eventually they're going to, I think, have a strong pendulum swing in the other direction of what you're looking to achieve. And I think that's what we saw this past election.
I think a little differently, and I'll tell you why. Well, I think differently,
yeah.
And I'll tell you why. I think in 2020, 2022, even 2021, when you saw young people show up and vote in droves for the Democratic Party, they voted on issues that they genuinely cared about. And of course, the economy took precedent in 2024. But I think that it's because they thought that the same actions to get that win would work in 2024, and it didn't. I think that the Democratic Party, and you mentioned message, right? I think that the Democratic Party and the left in general does really, really good mobilizing people on the ground.
Yeah.
The issue is the people that you're trying to meet now, this very large voting bloc, you're not going to be able to meet them on the ground. They are very hard to reach voters.
Yeah.
They're not in a voter file.
Yeah.
And
they live in apartments. It's hard to door knock.
It's very difficult to do that. But beyond that, the more conservative party excels in messaging. They excel in online organizing. LOL, I say, because, oh my God, the comments on my page is like, Soros-funded protesters.
Yeah.
And now my new thing, you want to know my new thing?
What is that?
Kirk-funded influencers. That's a thing. Like, come on. Charlie Kirk has the influencer conservative game on lock when it comes to pushing his narrative, the conservative narrative online. That's something that the left just doesn't know how to do. It's something that we haven't engaged in before.
Because you guys have had it easy for so long. You guys had Hollywood. You guys have the media. The reason that conservatives have influencers and our influencer apparatus is so much more sophisticated and bigger than y'all's is that y'all had Hollywood, and we realized that we were never going to find our heroes or our champions in Hollywood. Brad Pitt, George Clooney, they were never going to wear a MAGA hat. So what we said is we're going to create our own celebrities. We're going to create our own messengers and mobilizers of people. And that's exactly what we did. And we saw that, of course, deployed this past election. But I think, and honestly, I think how easy you guys have had it for so long kind of gave way to complacency. Because when you have every major news outlet, CNN, MSNBC, NBC, CBS, the New York Times, Washington Post, who are basically glorified stenographers for the Democrat Party, and you have Hollywood celebrities who will carry the water of the Democrat Party in every election, it becomes very easy to say, okay, like, why wouldn't young people like us? Why wouldn't these communities of people be jumping at the bit to go, elect the first Black woman president? And I think that was really what I saw.
I wouldn't only use Kamala Harris, though. I also think that there have been other individuals or people like even Hillary Clinton, when I think about her being a woman, more so white woman, and even like the fact that a lot of white women didn't show up for her versus how many Black women showed up for like a Kamala Harris. But one of the things that also kind of stayed out to me is the fact that I feel like the way young people voted in 2024 also was a response to hold the Democratic Party accountable. I think oftentimes there's been this loyalty to the Democratic Party and people were shocked. Not only the fact that young people didn't show up, but the only demographic that did show up were Black people. They, more than like 80% of Black voters did show up and vote more progressive, despite the fact that Trump did gain some wins amongst, Black men in this country. But every other demographic supported Trump compared to the Democratic Party, the Progressive Party, which, is shocking only in the sense to where, Gen Z is the most progressive and like most diverse generation. Yeah. But I also think that I don't want to just, I think what we'll see in the next 4 to 8 years, and what we've even seen in 2024 is like young people aren't Democrat and they're not Republican. I think this is a voting bloc that is not loyal to anybody. I think in 2026 we'll see that like they can switch up quick. Yeah. Which kind of leads me to my next question, which is like we clearly see that the GOP had a glow up this year. Yeah. They had some wins. Yeah. Well, they had the win, right? Like they definitely had the win in 2024. But will it do what it needs to do to keep young voters? And what I mean by that is we can't ignore the fact that young voters do go, pull sides. Yeah. Many of them outside of just the economy do care about a lot of these issues. I think I remember you tweeted something a long time ago like, I need somebody on this side to start talking about how we're going to address the student debt crisis. Yeah. Because like we can't ignore the fact that all of these people are like, the student debt crisis is an issue. Yeah. Like these are issues that young people care about. Yeah. Maybe in this election, it wasn't something that drove them to vote. Yeah. But who's to say it won't drive them to vote in other election cycles? Yeah. Or other issues that are deemed progressive or liberal. Yeah. And so like what is the GOP willing to meet people in the middle to work across that, not necessarily, work across that aisle to keep a very large voting bloc that's only going to continue to get large.
Yeah, I think, the GOP realizes that young voters, the investment that we made this past cycle needs to continue. We have to continue reaching young people where they are. We can't just rest on our laurels. We have to continue to be aggressive in ensuring that they realize and know where we stand on the issues that matter to them. I think in terms of the issue of climate change and whatnot, I think there's been a lot of, actions by Republican members, on that to, in the name of conservation, doing what we can to keep the planet beautiful, to make America beautiful again, whether that's through partnerships with natural parks and, and investing in nuclear, which of course is a cleaner, form of energy production. In terms of, other issues of priority, I think that we've seen, on the college affordability issue, I think there's a different way that we approach it. Obviously we've seen tuition prices go up at many of these universities, but the quality of the education not go up, the value of the degree not go up. But what we have seen are skyrocketing salaries for, folks in admin at these universities. And so whether that is, policy at the state level of capping, salary increases for administrative officials and making sure that more of those tuition dollars are going directly to improving the education of these students, or at least the student life on that particular campus, I think it would be something I would, love to see. But I think, to keep young voters over on our side, I think that we got to continue to let the Democrat Party do what they're doing. The more that they continue to defend the idea of biological men playing women's sports, I think you're going to lose a lot of people who just kind of have common sense and realize there are biological differences between men and women and aren't okay with that. I think the more that you advocate for, the undeportation, I guess I'll call it, of illegal aliens who are suspected gang members, who are rapists, murderers, and all of these things, and you're saying, oh, we need to bring them back to America, I think they're losing the plot there. I think a lot of young girls in particular, Lake and Riley being one, we're here in the state of Georgia, who was brutally murdered by an illegal alien as she was on a jog. I think a lot of young girls don't want to live next to the people who are suspected gang members and terrorists who shouldn't even be here to begin with because they came into this country illegally. And so I think that a lot of these issues, on the climate issue and a lot of these other things, we're looking to address them in a way that's, in accordance with our principles. But I think these broader issues are still important to voters of all demographics: immigration, crime, the economy. And I think that we're making a lot of tremendous progress on that. And we've already done that. And it's been less than 100 days with President Trump in office.
So I'm going to push back a little bit.
Of course.
And that's just on what will continue to push the Democratic Party to lose. Mm-hmm. I actually don't think any of those, like, progressive voters are progressive voters.
Yeah.
Like, they believe in equal rights.
Yeah.
They, like, these are just things that they innately believe, right?
Yeah.
And so, we believe that if you want to identify as LGBTQIA, you should be able to identify as however you want to.
Republicans agree.
And so it's like, I don't think that that's what's pushing young people away from the Democratic Party. I think what's pushing them away is they're not being contacted. Like 34% of young men were not contacted by a organization or a campaign. The only way that they heard or learned anything about the election was online by like conservative influencers or like Joe Rogan or individuals. And I think that, or even the president himself, like he went on some of these podcasts and he vibed out.
Yeah.
Right. And like, I think that's the plot that we're missing. Like we do not do well at showing up in the moment. But again, I think it's really important for us to realize that like just because this was a vote to the left, I mean to the right, just because this past election was a vote to the right, we got to kind of like figure out how we address the bigger issue at hand. Is like young people are doing LOL. I can't say Blexit. We say a Gen Nexit from like all political parties, right? And like they just want what they want, right?
Yeah.
They just want to be able to thrive and live, whether that's with the conservative party or the more progressive party.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I do want to address is like something that is happening in my friend groups or conversations that are happening, because I actually know some young people who did vote more conservative this election.
Yeah.
And it was around the economy.
Yeah.
And, the president himself mentioned like on day one, things are going to get better. Things have not gotten better, right?
I'll push back on that. Egg prices have gone down by 60%.
The wholesale price of eggs was $6.55 per dozen when Trump took office in January. By late March, it was $3, a decrease of more than 50%. Retail prices have remained high, $5.90 per dozen in February. The latest data available, which was higher than they were in January and higher than their peak during Biden.
We're seeing, gas prices are tumbling down.
According to Finder.com, U.S. gas prices have not decreased since January. On January the 2nd, the national average for a gallon of gas was about $3.03, the lowest weekly average recorded that year. As of May 8th, 2025, the average price had risen to $3.13 per gallon, indicating a 10-cent increase over the 4-month period. While there have been minor week-to-week fluctuations, the overall trend shows that gas prices have remained elevated since the beginning of the year. Notably, the highest weekly national average in 2025 was about $3.22 per gallon on April the 3rd. Despite short-term variations, gas prices in the U.S. have not declined since January of 2025.
So I think in many ways, they are getting better.
How it can't necessarily get better if over 500,000 people are like out of a job, and beyond that, rent prices aren't getting any better. You used to live in Atlanta, so I don't know how long ago you lived in Atlanta, but like for an apartment that 2 years ago that would have cost you $1,600, is now $4,000 a month. And 64% of Americans are still struggling, right? They still feel like the economy is an issue. Over 60% of Americans feel like right now we are going towards a recession, right? And so like these are issues that like everyday people are still battling with or struggling with. And it is sad to see. Like I'm hoping that we don't go into a recession. Because people are losing their jobs, and potentially their livelihood. But I'm interested in knowing, and kind of flipping the subject a little bit. I'm interested in hearing about how you are creating space or making space for more young people in the GOP.
No, we want more young voices, to be a part of the solution. The Youth Advisory Council, first came about in 2024 going into the election because we realized the importance that young voices were going to play, not only in that election, but in the future direction of our party. And so we're committed to, seeing that through, continuing to invest in young voices and ensuring that their ideas are given a platform and some of the rooms in which the decisions that are going to dictate the direction of our party are being made. To go back to your earlier point about, a lot of people, believe that they would have day one relief. It's going to take time, to undo the irreparable harm that Joe Biden inflicted upon our economy.
But let me tell you something. President Trump came in swinging.
He did.
And I think that's also why a lot of people have this like love-hate relationship with the Democratic Party, because I think that they tried to play it safe.
Yeah.
And President Trump came in like,
yeah,
I'm just
the president,
within 100 days.
He has 3 years.
It is what it is.
He has 3 years. This is his last term. And so I think he realizes the moment that we're in, like if he is going to achieve everything that he ran on, there's no time to waste. And he has been incredibly aggressive, to your point. But I think we have already seen examples of relief being had. Egg prices coming down, gas prices coming down. We saw more jobs created this past month that beat the projections of the economists.
Total non-farm payroll employment increased by 177,000, and the unemployment rate was unchanged at 4.2% in April of 2025. This was more than analysts expected. Employment continued to trend up in healthcare, transportation, warehousing. However, federal government employment declined.
And so there are definitely great things happening in America right now.
Please tell me where those jobs are, because my people not in the field.
Yeah, they
not in the field.
They're all across the country.
But please tell me, because I mean, I know so many people and hundreds of thousands of people have lost their jobs.
Yeah,
and it still doesn't negate the fact that majority of the country feel like we're not where we need to be, or they're not where they need to be economically in order to just survive or make ends meet. You know, but I mentioned President Trump going out swinging, coming out swinging.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I've always been able to respect, like you were saying about the more conservative party, is the fact that like they are unapologetic in their doing.
Yeah.
And
I think the Democrats are too.
No, they're not.
Yeah, they are.
No, that's not true.
The way the DOJ was going after conservatives, locking them up, putting them in prison for their political beliefs, that was pretty unapologetic.
I don't know if it was about their political beliefs or the fact that they actually did something that was dead wrong.
I don't know.
But if you break the law, you're going to jail, CJ.
You're right.
But listen, if I break the law, I'm going to jail.
Unless your name is Hunter Biden.
Or President Trump. But what I will say is that they've always been unapologetic. Like if there was a Democratic president, like people on the Republican side would resist. I think right now what young people, more so young progressives, are not happy about is the fact that there's silence on our side. And there's only like 3 people who are like speaking up, doing the great fight. And that is AOC, that is Bernie Sanders, and that is Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. I don't understand why you won't get off of my sis's neck. I feel like her voice right now is needed. I know you were like, she's setting our people back, but I feel like her voice right now is needed because if you look at the political landscape, there is nobody, and we need people engaging in political conversations and having these open disagreements to make us a democracy. And so I feel like she is the only one outside of AOC and like Bernie Sanders, which we expect that, right, from them. Like they've always been at that forefront of like, pushing back to do that for us in this moment. And so for me, I feel like her voice is very, very needed. And appreciate it for me.
By voice, do you mean the voice that she used when she was a Texas state representative, when she did not talk the way that she currently talks, and now, when she realizes that she's going viral for in 2 years at her big age, you don't evolve. You don't change the way.
First of all,
you don't change the way that you speak like that.
You don't change the way that you speak. Are you trying to pull the cancer culture moment? Are you trying to cancel her?
No.
For switching up her vibe.
I'm saying if she's evolving,
or maybe she was cosplaying. Sometimes.
So she's had a long battle with inauthenticity, you're saying, and I
don't
completely
know
agree.
about inauthenticity. I think sometimes when you are in the political space, you try to like carry yourself as a way to be accepted, right? But at some point, you're just like, you know what? Today I want to be CJ Pearson and just say forget about it. Like I don't care about being canceled.
Yeah.
Like I just want to be authentically me. Yeah. And so like maybe she was not necessarily being inauthentic, but maybe she was cosplaying as the politician or the elected official that everyone wanted her to be. And maybe now she's being the individual that young people on the left need her to be, which is herself and like unapologetic and just speaking up because no one else is doing it. But I had to bring that up because CJ will literally not get off of my sis's neck.
You know, Congresswoman Wig, she's doing she's very
Congresswoman Crockett.
Wig, but you know, it's one of those things. I understand the energy that is needed, you know, on the left right now. But I think the reason that so many people on the left are so silent is because there's no message right now. It's like you can't, and sometimes I see it. It's like sometimes I feel like there's a reflexive urge to fall back on the old like Donald Trump's a dictator messaging. That didn't work in the election. It's not going to work now. People don't believe that. People see, they know that we have checks and balances. They know that he was democratically elected. He won the popular vote in the Electoral College. But I don't think the message is working though.
That message might not have worked in 2023 going into 2024 because they were in the thick of it. They were going through economic hardships because what drove many of them to vote was the economy. But I also think that what we've seen over the course of the past few months on the more progressive side as a young person is not that. Like, you know, the talks of a third term. Like some of these things just make people think, are you trying to push us into a dictatorship?
Oh, the president's joking. The president's joking.
Listen, don't joke. Like, you don't joke about being a dictator. That's not a funny matter.
Well, he hasn't joked about becoming a dictator. He said that, you know, he would run for a third term. So that would still be democracy.
You can't run for a third term.
We can change the Constitution.
But see, that's my point, though, because you're talking about checks and balances. But like now we're like, well, hold on. Checks and balances have worked for every other president, but checks and balances don't work for this president.
I think
so
they absolutely have worked. So we can't
pick and choose when we want to use checks and balances.
I think checks and balances have exactly worked. The president, you know, works with all branches of government. Yeah, to execute his
because there's a lot of judges who feel like their voices aren't being heard because
there are district court judges who are seeking to abuse their power, who represent small slithers of America and are trying to use nationwide injunctions to stifle the president's agenda.
These are things that they've been able to do, checks and balances, historically before. And so why isn't that something that they can do now with this president? And I also want to say, and this is something that I was talking to a friend of mine about, because I think with the politicians being silent, but also people and organizers and even philanthropy, they feel silenced. And I was talking to a friend of mine. I was like, you know, it's so interesting because like the Conservative Party has always pushed freedom of speech. And now I kind of feel like people on the left can't speak.
What do you mean y'all can't speak?
I feel like people on the left can't speak or speak their authentic truth because they're afraid or fear of the retaliation that they'll get. And it's different if you get retaliation on like Instagram or Twitter and like the trolls online. You're no stranger to trolls online.
No, I'm not at all.
Like, I don't care if I get retaliated against with the trolls online. Like, send the conservative trolls and maybe that'll boost me up in the algorithm and like get me paid. Like, please come over here and troll me. But I think that they're afraid of the retaliation from the administration. They're afraid of the retaliation.
Wait, so you're telling me progressives are scared they're going to be thrown into jail because of their political beliefs?
Because that is
that
what
was the reality of every Republican under the Joe Biden
dictatorship.
administration. Republicans were living in fear in this country because we had a justice system and a Biden DOJ that was weaponized against conservatives in this country. We had pro-life activists who were thrown in jail for protesting in support of pro-life policies.
Honestly, I think the only politicians or individuals that were arrested, if you go to a more liberal protest, right, and you break the law, you go to jail.
And then,
if you go to
a bail fund that gets you out of jail.
If you go to a conservative protest and break the law, you have to pay the price. That is just what happens in America. No. Like, you break the law, you do something, you just gotta. But what people are afraid of, right, is if I disagree with Elon Musk, which I'm not even. So, I tweeted this actually. This is gonna get me in trouble. Jada might throw her shoe at me. I tweeted this actually. I was like, I support. We're gonna save this for uncancelable. But I feel like, people are afraid of the like that is real though. Like that is a fear. People are afraid of the retaliation.
I don't think there's anything
from
to be afraid
a party that once spouted freedom of speech. You should be freedom of speech. Okay, cool. And it's so interesting. If I said half of the stuff you said online, I would be canceled because I was
by your own side. You would be canceled by your own side.
I would be canceled by y'all. Jasmine Crockett is canceled on y'all side, and she just speaking her truth.
Jasmine Crockett is not canceled by
speaking her
anyone.
truth. You all
We are critical of her
You all-
because every time she opens her mouth, she embarrasses the black community. I'm very critical of her.
How does she embarrass the black community?
How does she embarrass the black community? She is a member of Congress, acting like she is like.
Is she trying? Hold on, TikTok and like. That is what drove young people to vote in 2024. So why is that not something that she should? She is the only one, right? Thank you for attempting.
Obama mobilized so many young people in 2008, and did he talk like Jasmine Crockett?
That was not 2024, and it's not even about talking like Jasmine Crockett because Obama is Obama and Jasmine Crockett is Jasmine Crockett, and people talk.
But I don't know who Jasmine Crockett is because every time I see videos of her from 2 years ago, and then she talks like a nice, demure young woman. And then now I see videos of her now, and it's just not the same Jasmine Crockett. I'm confused. But I think Jasmine Crockett's more confused than I'm confused.
I don't think
because
so.
I don't think she actually knows who she is. I think that she realizes that the Democrat Party believes that for some reason that if she talks like that, acts like that, that's going to solve their problem with black voters.
So are you basically trying to say that Jasmine Crockett is like silk and woke?
I think I don't know that. I don't know about
y'all
that.
don't know about
I don't know that. I don't know about
part
that.
On stage.
I think she's definitely playing. I think she's playing a part.
I think
she's probably playing a part.
A weird thing for the black community, but I think what we're seeing from her is someone who is not afraid to stand up and be like. Outside of that, what else has she done? Like, is it policies that she's like? I feel like she is.
I don't even know if she's passed legislation. Has she passed legislation?
She is an individual who's speaking up on behalf of.
But has she passed legislation that's benefited the black community?
I think all of the policies and issues that she's pushing is for her community.
So she's speaking, she's yapping, but what policies has she actually passed that have benefited our community?
How can we pass policies?
She was in Congress when Joe Biden was there.
CJ, I understand that point, but even beyond that, I still feel like in this moment, she is doing what we need her to do. And I don't need her to shut up.
Which is tweet.
And here's something else. Here's something else. One, I think she's meeting young people where they are in 2024. It was online. I think she's trying to create space for young people to engage with her online. I also feel like that's something that other people aren't doing. But I just feel like it's a breath of fresh air for me to just see her authentically be who she is, even if that's not who you like. You can't tell somebody who they are.
No, I just want her to figure out who she is. I'm not telling her who she is, but I think at the end of the day, I don't think Congress should be. Congress is Congress. They make laws. We are the greatest country in the world, the most powerful country in the world. We are the leaders of the free world. There is no reason I should go on C-SPAN and it looks like I'm watching Bad Girls Club. Why is C-SPAN looking like Oxygen? What's going on?
Is it because of Marjorie Taylor Greene?
I'm not. I think there's enough blame to go. There's enough blame to go around. There's enough blame to go around. But I'm saying you tune in to C-SPAN now, and it's Real Housewives of Atlanta. I love Real Housewives of Atlanta. It's a great show.
And it's because of the Georgia girl, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Going full.
You want to know? You want to know? That's where I got Congresswoman Wig's nickname. You know, and there's a Real Housewives clip. They say, "What's up, Wig?" or "Bye, Wig." You know.
Are you talking about Nene Leakes?
Yeah.
Really?
Nene's great.
So that's why I have to get myself together because CJ. So we have this segment called Uncancelable, and it's so funny. I wanted to pull old tweets, but I just feel like
I hope mine
literally all of your tweets you believe in wholeheartedly. So like, what's the point of even trying to have a conversation about Uncancelable? So instead, what I will do is go through a segment that we did with another person.
Okay.
I'll ask you some questions and then you answer them.
Okay.
All right?
Let's do it.
So, hold on one second. Let's see if I can pull it up. Okay. So, name me, based on this moment, right? This moment in politics, a reality show that best describes what's happening right now in politics.
I think it's either Bad Girls Club or Real Housewives of Atlanta for sure.
Have you really watched the Bad Girls Club?
Yeah, my mom was a big Bad Girls Club
fan back in the day.
Okay. I've only seen like an episode or two. I've not seen too many. I would say Bad Girls Club. Definitely, you've got Marjorie Taylor Greene, Jasmine Crockett. You know, throw in a few other. Yeah.
Oh my God, Senator Kennedy and the.
Wait, then maybe it's more like Southern Trump. I've not seen it, but maybe that's more. If you throw in Senator Kennedy, that's like
he's.
You know,
I mean,
he's hilarious. You got
his whole
him coming up with
is
that
just
stuff
a lot.
is
a lot, and I'm like, did he really? I think I'm gonna blame it on his grandchildren. I think his grandchildren encouraged him to do the things that he's doing.
It's so funny.
Okay, so if you could choose an elected official to live off of $2,500 a month, who would it be, and who do you think would give up first?
Ooh, an elected official to live off of $2,500 a month.
Because that's what basically Americans are living off of every month.
Wow.
Are you saying wow, as in you can't believe people are living off of $2,500 a month? And you're asking me how can they survive in this economy?
In this Joe Biden economy, yeah, I cannot believe.
No.
Yeah.
Listen,
I can't imagine how they were
Trump
able to survive.
told me that he would fix my economy on day one.
I think he said that he would. I think he said that
he
would
was
start.
Going to do it.
He would
and he
start
did
the process.
Everything else in like 30 days.
He would start the process.
So he can fix our economy.
He would start the process, and we've already seen the effects of that. But you know who could live off of $2,500 a month? Probably, AOC. She says that she's
I think she actually could, but I'm saying who else? Like none of the insider traders.
Insider trader Nancy Pelosi?
No.
Nancy Pelosi.
I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene just made a pretty
Nancy
penny.
Pelosi beats the market.
Marjorie Taylor
I
Greene
want
just
whoever her
made
financial advisor
a
is.
Pretty penny. I think she invested in Costco. I can't even lie.
I don't know.
Their DEI programming. See, DEI has its benefits, and y'all are acting like it doesn't.
I don't know. White liberal women do love DEI.
Listen.
They do.
Listen.
But, I don't know. The 2,500, that's hard.
What's one of the most delusional things that you've heard in a coalition meeting? I think on the left or the more progressive side, I know the tea. Mm-hmm. But I guess while you're here, I'm interested in knowing the tea on the other side because I feel like it exists.
It's delusional.
What's the most delusional thing you heard a boomer or an older person say, like on a coalition meeting where you were just like, I don't think they get it?
I think just thinking that just by tweeting we need to reach young people, we just need to make a Twitter account. I think some of them just genuinely believe that if we just have a social media account, the post don't have to be good as long as you're present. They think that that's enough, which I've never really understood at all. Yeah.
How do you feel about social media trends like Pop the Balloon and
Pop the Balloon's funny. It's hilarious. I think it's.
You don't think that's putting our people back?
I think it's definitely, yeah.
You know what?
I think culturally it is very problematic, but it is entertaining. But it is very, and I think also too, it's you look at this culture now of just it's talking about the Black community specifically. We're having all these debates online about 50-50. I remember that. You remember the crab legs video? You don't remember that video? No, it was oysters. It was in Atlanta. They went to he took this girl out on a date. She ordered 50 oysters.
Okay, but was it fake?
No, I think it was real. It was big on TikTok, but I don't know. It's interesting.
I mean, you have friends that are sending our people back.
Who?
Kodak Black. You're like, oh, Kodak. Y'all have Twitter pictures and Instagram pictures. You don't think Kodak is sending our people back?
Kodak is investing in our community. He is. He just. There was actually a story just yesterday came out. He paid all of these people's rent for 2 months. Really? 2 months, giving them a hand up.
Do you know a Kodak Black song?
No Flockin'. I love.
First of all, No Flockin' was his first big hit. Everybody knows No Flockin'.
And it's timeless. It's timeless. We've also got Conscience.
Okay, do you know this one? Do you know this one? My name Kodak Black. When
they see me, I'm no.
You don't know that one?
No,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We are having a key. Listen. If I don't go to your podcast and have a key, I'm going to be upset.
No, I'm looking forward to it.
Listen, really don't set me up for the okie doke. Do not set me up for the okie because I will leave.
I'm gonna have Marjorie come on too.
Don't do that. They just did her people wrong. Someone got tased.
Because y'all came in there acting goddamn
people can protest without being tased and arrested.
They can protest outside.
No,
protest outside.
This is a democracy. This is what
I'm
talking.
There are rules.
No. Yeah, you're right.
On the flyer.
Which is why people.
On the flyer, there would be no interruptions.
Who do things like storm the Capitol.
And then there are people who burn down buildings, Black-owned businesses actually,
and some people
in support of Black Lives Mattering.
Those people go to jail.
And then they get let out of jail due to Soros-funded bail funds.
Anytime I've had a march, they've been peaceful protests. I've never led a march or anything, nothing, no march or any rally that I've had had that kind of, which I thank God. Because honestly, I could have been liable for that.
Yeah.
But no protest or anything that I've ever led or had, thank God. Like,
yeah, and I appreciate your leadership for that, but I think it dismisses the many examples of people, following the death of George Floyd, who literally burned down whole communities, many of which are Black-owned businesses, and I know it firsthand. When that happened, I raised $180,000 for Black-owned businesses that were vandalized, and I think that's the thing. It's like, I think the reason so many people really believe there's a double standard when it comes to January 6th and a lot of those protests is that there wasn't this huge FBI task force to go after every single person that threw a brick or that was, at an unauthorized location or trespass or anything like that. There was as related to the Capitol building. And it's like, I'm not defending anyone who committed violence or, harmed any police officers or committed vandalism. But at the same time, I think it's a very clear double standard. And I think when people point that out, they're right to.
About
the double standard between how we approached folks who committed acts of violence from BLM protest compared to people who committed acts of violence from January 6th.
Historically, there has been oversight when it comes to some of these marches, rallies, and protests. And maybe not on a federal level, but definitely on a state level, but also historically there have been. Like, we can even think about the civil rights movement. Yeah. There was a lot of oversight. And with files and stuff coming out, we know that the FBI and others historically, when you think about Black-led movements, have had that.
And who's releasing those files?
And so, but beyond that,
who's releasing those files?
I mean, we get that Trump is releasing those files.
President Trump.
But what I will say is that there was oversight there. And so historically, you couldn't tell someone during the BLM movement that wasn't happening, because that's always happened. There's always been that lens or that watching or lurking over movements. But that's also why I think Black-led movements like BLM and leaders try their best to not put too much information out there. I'm interested to know, you did a lot around. Well, you went to protests recently. I wasn't there.
Yeah.
And you mentioned something that was so interesting in our last conversation. I was just speaking with people because the question is where's the Black community? Why aren't Black people organizing and mobilizing in this moment? You know, and Black people are what do you want us to do? They did vote. More progressive.
They voted. They voted, and increasingly Black men, they voted for, President Trump. But
in the 2024 U.S. presidential election, approximately 24% of Black men voted for President Donald Trump. According to the post-election survey by Navigator Research, this marked a significant increase from 2020, when Trump received about 12% of the Black male vote.
I think,
they didn't vote for Trump. I think a large percentage voted for Harris.
Yeah,
but
of course.
Trump did pick up some gains, but we cannot say that Black men voted for Trump. That's not true.
I know. Increasingly,
but the Black community, specifically as a whole, mainly voted more more progressive. So that question is where's the Black community? Why aren't they marching? Why aren't they fighting with us in this time?
Yeah.
And they're not, because they feel like we did our part.
Yeah.
But you went to protests recently.
Yeah, I did. It was wider than any Republican national convention I've ever been to, but it was quite interesting. You have all these people with these signs who don't really know what is on their sign. There was a white man from Rhode Island who held a sign up that said, "You can't deport us all." He was literally from Oregon. Oregon is where he was
CJ,
from. So
that's my point, though, right? Is because you have to realize that fear that the conservative party once held, right? There would be times, and I think I was talking to a friend of mine, and I was like, the fear that some people have right now is definitely probably I could see why people would think oh, that's a conspiracy theory, right? People are afraid of that kind of retaliation.
Well, that's crazy.
And when you say you can't deport us all, I mean, at the same time, we do see we're going to send actual American citizens.
Not a single American citizen has been deported in this country.
But there was an American citizen that was deported. He was a dad.
Kilmer Abrego Garcia is not a U.S. citizen. He is an El Salvadorian native who entered the United States without authorization around 2011, fleeing gang violence in El Salvador. In 2019, an immigration judge granted him withholding of removal status, a protection from deportation due to the risk he faced if he returned to his home in El Salvador. Despite this legal protection, he was mistakenly deported to El Salvador in March of 2025, an action that the Trump administration acknowledged as an administrative error. His wife and children are indeed U.S. citizens, and legal efforts are ongoing to facilitate Kilmer's return to the United States.
No.
He was sent to El Salvador?
He's from El Salvador. He's an illegal alien. He had wandered himself into Maryland, and he was deported. No, he was never an American citizen. He was never given citizenship. He was deported from this country. Legally, there was a deportation order that said that he needed to be sent back to El Salvador. And now you have Democrats who are saying that we need to bring back the suspected gang member back into our country, which is absolutely asinine and something the American people don't
that
support.
Someone is or is not a gang member?
I think the DHS and the DOJ have come to that conclusion. I believe in the law enforcement officials that, comprise those organizations, and they have come to that conclusion. And there's also multiple immigration judges who have ruled that he is a member of MS-13. Everything from
sure that
his tattoos
some judges are saying that they need to begin bringing him back.
A district court judge has ruled that and whatnot, but he actually didn't rule. The ruling wasn't that he needed to be brought back. The ruling was that the U.S., if El Salvador chose to give him back, because he's now in El Salvador, he's outside the jurisdiction of all of our courts and all of U.S. authority, that the U.S. would have to facilitate that.
The Supreme Court ruled on the evening of April 10th that Trump and his administration must comply with lower court's order to facilitate the release from custody of Kilmer Abrego Garcia. The Trump administration, which has said that Abrego Garcia was accidentally deported due to an administrative error, has stalled on bringing him back despite court orders, arguing that U.S. agencies do not have the authority to forcibly extract an alien from the domestic custody of a foreign sovereign nation. Abrego Garcia was among more than 250 immigrants who were deported by the administrative to El Salvador on March the 15th.
And so we couldn't just be like, no, he can't come back. However, President Bukele of El Salvador said just yesterday or 2 days ago that he is not going to be releasing.
Do you think I believe that President Bukele wouldn't give Donald Trump what he wanted?
Well, at the end of the day, Donald Trump wants to keep America safe, and that includes not allowing suspected gang members back into our country. And I think you're actually right. President Bukele would do what President Trump wants. What President Trump wants to do is make America safe again. But going back to your point, though, like, he is not an American citizen. No American citizen has been deported. You want to know why I'm not fearful about getting deported?
Why?
Because I was born in Augusta, Georgia, Mary-Pat Hector. You were born in Atlanta, Georgia.
Hold on. I have to give my story.
You are not going to be deported.
My story.
You're not getting deported anywhere.
I was coming back from London 2 weeks ago, and my name is Mary Patricia Hector. Now, my name Kodak Black. But if you see my name, you might raise an eyebrow.
Why?
They literally pulled me to the side. We had to go through, first of all, everyone else was able to go through customs. We went as a family. Everyone is able to go to customs. I just had to call Jada and be like, girl, why they put me in immigration? They had me in immigration. They're expecting my passport and all the things, ask me questions where I'm from, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, literally, I am from, my people have been in Atlanta, Georgia since probably the transatlantic slave trade. You know what I mean? Well, my mom's from Ohio, but my dad's roots are here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And they tried to put me. But you know what? I was forward thinking. So I had my birth certificate. So it's here's the birth certificate. They wanted to check the authentication. Yeah. You want to go to Grady Memorial? Yeah. We can go to Grady Memorial. But that's real though. Yeah. Because what if I didn't have my birth certificate? And what if they tried to tell me something was wrong with my passport?
able to get back into the country.
Well, then I would have had to call you, and you would have had to call Trump, and y'all would have had to get me. But then Trump would have been like, "We're gonna leave her in El Salvador, at an encampment, or on Guantanamo Bay,
London. You were turned up in London,
and they would have sent me to Guantanamo Bay." Listen, I'm not playing with y'all.
You were turned up in London.
And everyone's like, "Oh, why are people speaking up?" They're not speaking up because Donald Trump might.
No,
send them all to El Salvador, and that's real. People are afraid of the retaliation.
I think it's completely exaggerated. Look at Joyanne Reid. She's walking around free, unemployed, but she's still free.
Why is she unemployed?
Because her ratings weren't high enough, and then MSNBC realized that she was not the investment.
Her ratings are better than a lot of people on MSNBC.
Maybe
I think her being fired was definitely retaliation. But I can't.
How does Donald Trump control what NBC News does?
How come billionaires? How can billionaires control what's happening in the media? Billionaires in general. How can billionaires impact what's happening in the media?
Well,
And honestly,
Trump has nothing to do with
I will
NBC
tell you
News.
right now, when it comes to a billionaire who's willing to put their money where their mouth is, depending on their beliefs, is really, it's needed. And like right now, a lot of philanthropists are afraid of retaliation. And so they're no longer funding progressive movements. Right? And we all don't have $60 million in an endowment fund like Charlie Kirk. Maybe he'll feel bad enough for me and send me a little something. Maybe you can make that call. I don't know. But we all don't have Kirk money. And we all don't have
But many of you have George Soros money. And so I think when you look
George
at that
Soros
fact,
is one individual. And I think
there's Reid Hoffman.
There's
Doreen Powell Jobs.
I think that
many progressive donors.
The conservative side has been able to be steadfast in their funding, and when they give, they give. I think when it comes to the progressive side, there's so much going on, and you might get a grant for a year, you might get a grant every other cycle, but no organization that's really on the ground, like doing the work, has an endowment, let alone an endowment like a TPU. Can you imagine? Now, my organization had in 2024 hundreds of young people that were paid full and part-time. Right? We did really well last year. But we don't have TPUSA money. We don't have TPUSA money. Okay, I want to do red flag, green flag really quickly. And then we will, Jeff Bezos bought the Washington Post and is controlling the, like, billionaires are controlling our media. Whether it's from the left or the right, billionaires are controlling our media.
And Democrats are the reporters that are giving us the news. So I guess
Democrats are not. That you can't give anyone the news when you're being controlled. And that's why I think either a lot of people were fired that people found credible. A lot of people were fired or they left because they didn't want to be under that control. And they're finding their voice, and they're finding where young people are, which is online. Like, they're finding their voice online so that they could be independent, right? Independent sources of media, which is extremely important. Especially because all of these billionaires are, like, controlling the narrative. Whether it is a left platform or a right platform, people are controlling narratives to benefit themselves, which makes me happy when I see people being able to, like, authentically utilize their voice.
I think we need more independent journalists, for sure.
Okay, so red flag, green flag. Assuming young Black voters will automatically support a party because of red flag automatically, like not even finishing it. Okay. Politicians who primarily engage with young voters through TikTok dances.
Red flag.
Okay. Treating the youth vote as a monolith despite significant diversity within Gen Z.
Red flag.
Politicians who adjust their economic messaging based on feedback from young voters.
Green flag.
Okay. Candidates who engage directly with criticism from young voters rather than dismissing it.
Green flag.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that why people are canceling their town halls?
Canceling their town halls.
They're canceling their town halls.
Marjorie Taylor Greene had one yesterday.
Marjorie Taylor Greene was the only one.
God bless her.
That decided to have her town hall. Everybody else is like,
I don't know.
Maybe not. Okay, cool. So, I have a final question for you.
What is it?
So, we know that we're realigning, or we're witnessing a historic realignment with young people and how they show up to vote. As I mentioned before, young people are showing us that they're not monolithic. They're showing us that they'll swing either way. And there's really a need for me, young people just taking up that realm instead of waiting for what we have now, which is like, most of these people have been in office for ever. What is it that you think, if you could say anything to both major parties, when it comes to young people and the vote, what would you say to both of them? Or I guess it's, what would you say to them when it comes to allowing more young people to lead? Right?
I think what I would say is pretty simple. I think young voters are not just the voters of tomorrow, they're voters of today. And, disregarding them, neglecting them, not listening to their concerns or their priorities is only going to be at your own kind of, lack of benefit. Like you're not, I think at the end of the day, we need to reach young people where they are. We need to listen to them. We need to elevate them in our party. Not just in these honorary positions, which, you know, I saw the DNC recently elected David Hogg to be their vice chair, but actually positions of influence are actually going to control candidate recruitment, message development, how we actually reach them, you know, like through paid media spends and all of those things. It's important to have young people in the room, not just as, you know, just like tokens, but also as people that we're actually going to listen to and value and prize. And so I think the more that we do that, the more that we'll be able to continue, at least on our side, you know, what we're able to see in 2024. And yeah, I think that's my advice. Like, don't take them for granted. And I think don't just, you know, do like this tokenism thing that we of course we know when it comes to like black voters, but young voters are the same way. Yeah. It's like just having a committee or having young people in the room is not enough. We need to have, you know, them to have an actual impact on the decisions that are being made.
Absolutely. And on the left, I'd have to say that we need more young people online combating the Kirk funded.
But you've got Harry Sisson.
I mean, and the Bruce Ritz funded influencer
He's
who
great.
are pushing young people.
Yeah. But what about Harry Sisson?
Right.
See, you guys canceled Harry Sisson this past month because the man was shooting his shot with his I don't know how to describe him, his roster. I don't know what you would say about that.
His roster?
Yeah.
I don't know about any of that. Yeah. Really, what I've been doing, you know what I've been doing to find peace in this moment?
What have you been doing?
You have been raising hell. For me, what I've been trying to do to stay sane and fight what you were pushing onto me is peace.
Yeah.
I've turned off the TV.
Yeah.
I'm disconnected.
Yeah.
Connecting back to my roots, finding joy where I can, and delving back into community. I think, you know, the reason why you didn't see a lot of black people out at the protests that you went to was because many of the black people that did show up and vote were progressive are just trying to be in community and lift each other's spirits up in this time.
They're unburdening themselves by what has been. I
don't know about, well, I guess in a way, yes, but also no. I think it's just feeling betrayed. Like I think one of a friend of mine who is also from another, you know, marginalized community. Yeah. You know, said, you know, we really need to be working together, blah, blah, blah. And I said, you know, I understand wanting to work together in this time, but right now, like as a black woman, we have to really reestablish trust. Like our communities need to really reestablish trust. Because in my mind, right, and in many people's minds, you know, I'm going to use the same old quote, right? A threat to justice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, right? And so like, you know, as a black woman who, you know, we know the history of being black in America. Yeah. You know, the struggle, right? Yeah. Like, you know, when you feel like someone is targeting you because of what you are. Yeah. And, you know, you see people who aren't black, but Latinx and others supporting candidates that fundamentally don't support who you are, and you vote for them. And we're like, this doesn't make any sense. Yeah. And so I think...
Have you ever at any point felt betrayed by the Democrat Party?
I think that a lot of people right now feel betrayed by the fact that a lot of them aren't speaking up and fighting hard enough and pushing what we want them to push outside of AOC, Jasmine Crockett, Bernie Sanders, and most recently, Cory Booker. Yeah. I think like that is something that has made us happy, a little bit of resistance. Yeah. And this is different for you because I feel like despite having a Democrat president or whatever, like Republicans always stick together and they always fight together. And if they have a dispute or a disagreement, they will handle that in private. You know what I mean? Like as of right now, we're just going to stick together. If there is, you'll never know that there is any disorganization on that side if there is disorganization on that side. Yeah. And so for me right now, I think that's what is making me sad is the fact that enough people aren't willing to speak up. But someone told me something today that made me realize, okay, well, maybe, Mary, maybe you're being hard on people. And it is the fear that I talked about. Like, that is just a real thing. Like, some people are afraid to speak up. They're afraid of losing it all due to what could happen. You know, like, I get it. If a Democratic politician decides to speak up, you know, will he be a target? Because President Trump,
in the same way that Eric Adams was indicted by the Biden DOJ for criticizing illegal
people
immigration.
feel that may have happened to them. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that is a fear, and so I have to understand that. But that is what made me feel a little let down in this moment. I also feel like, you know, what I would love to see is more support and a pushing of young people beyond just, you know, oh, you're the chair of this deal. Like, I want you to push younger candidates really, really hard. You know what I mean? Like, you do have a Maxwell Frost, you do have a Senator John Ossoff, but I want to see more. Like, I want to see more young people who are really pushed and excelled. Like, I feel like President Obama was a young candidate that didn't get pushed, but I feel like outside of President Obama, when it comes to him running for president, that was like the last really big investment. So for me, I want to see them do more when it comes to allowing young people to lead and actually like invest in them heavily to run for office and trust them to lead in positions of power. Hopefully that will come. Regardless, there's a Gen Exit from all major political parties. I think young people are like, listen, do we need to create our own Gen Z? I don't know. Like, what is it? Because, you know, they're not monolithic. In one instance, they may have a conservative view. In another instance, they may have a progressive view. And it feels like they're fighting against each other. And it's like, if I believe in abortion, then maybe I don't feel like I'm fit on the conservative side. Or if I don't believe in climate change, then maybe I don't belong on the liberal side. And it's like, right now, young people have all of these views and opinions, and, you know, they're not feeling like they fit anywhere. And so I do also want people to feel like they can fit somewhere.
No, I think we're gonna have like a rise of issue-based voters. I think people that are just gonna make calls based on, you know, where they feel in that point of time in our country. And at the end of the day, I think that's how most people should vote. You know, look at the issues and look at where the candidates stand, and, you know, maybe that leads you to voting, you know, differently election per election, different at the municipal level versus the state and federal level. But at the end of the day, you got to make the vote that matters. You know, that fits your values and fits where you're at in life. So you know, that's interesting.
Okay, CJ. Well, we want to thank you for joining.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, but listen. And, you know, would you like to leave a statement for a young person who wants to run for office?
Yeah.
But, you know, like, what would you say to a young person who's like, you know what? I'm inspired now to do something or run.
You know, I would say, you know, do it. I think it's one of the most formative experiences of your life. You will work harder than you have ever had to work for anything. You will face adversity that you never thought you would face, but you will be so much stronger on the other end of it. And even if you're not successful in your first campaign or your first run, the lessons that you learn from that campaign will make you so much harder to beat in your next. And also realize that, you know, what God has for you is for you, and it may not be when you want it, but it doesn't mean that it's never, right? And victory delayed is never victory denied. And so, I would say, you know, continue to like be present in your community, be vocal, build support, build a base, learn how to fundraise. You know, it's a huge part of it all.
It's hard to do right now because all of the philanthropists are afraid of Trump.
You know, well, they've found a way to give through, you know, these C4 dark money organizations. I'm sure they'll continue to do that. But
I look, point me to the dark money. I mean,
hey, I don't know.
Because it's getting thick out here.
You got to get Alex Soros on the phone. But no, but that's what I would do. I go run, go make a difference, go be heard, and yeah.
Hi, my name is Jada Carswell. I'm a recent HBCU grad from Johnson C. Smith University, and my question for CJ is, how can we encourage real dialogue between young voters across the political spectrum without it becoming hostile or performative?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think that we just need to have, I think this is an example of that, right? Just, I think when you see someone that you disagree with, I don't think you should immediately just think that their intentions are bad or that they're evil or that they're racist or they're bigoted or they're whatever, negative connotation you want to assign to them at that moment. But I think try to understand why they are where they are. And then I think the more that you do that, the more we're able to have these conversations and facilitate the type of dialogue that we need that's going to bring us together rather than push us apart.
And I am from the DMV area, and I go to the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And my question today is, to what extent does the Democratic Party represent the full range of the political priorities among Black voters?
Is this his question? Is this his question? Okay, I don't think this is his question because he's not from the Democratic Party.
Surprise, friends. My name is Mariah, and I am a 22-year-old HBCU alumni of Johnson C. Smith University. My question is for CJ Pearson. What do you think draws some young Black voters toward conservatism, and how is that different from older generations?
Yeah, I think what's drawing young Black voters to the Republican Party and to conservatism is the fact that we know what a woman is. I think, that is a big part of things, that we know how many genders there are, that we don't believe that biological men should be playing in women's sports. I think that, we are not afraid to recognize the fact that this is a nation that is under God. We, the Black community is an evangelical community. We're proud of that fact. We love the Lord. So I think that's what it is.
CJ's trolling me at this point. If y'all
I'm
are
not
talking
trolling
about trolls,
you.
he's purposely trolling me on my platform.
I'm not trolling.
He is trying to troll
I'm
me.
not trolling you.
He's him and his little tidbit.
That was a great question.
Hey CJ, my name's Tia. I've been noticing more and more that young adults, especially young Black adults, do not feel fully represented by either political party. What do you think is missing from the conversation that will actually speak to the rest of the needs of our generation?
Yeah, I think honestly, it's kind of what we discussed earlier. I think that there are a lot of people, young people, who feel politically homeless just in general, and I think that they just got to do a personal inventory about their own values and realize that, while yes, typically you choose to belong to one party over the other, it's not a choice that you're forced to make. There's not a binary here. I think that you can totally choose to vote for who you want to vote for, and maybe that differs cycle to cycle, election to election, but you just got to vote based on your personal value system.
All right, y'all. Well, thank you so much for tuning in to Okay But Listen.